So we are live on the New Earth Project page with Dr. Buttar, with Cordy Williams, and Dominic Izzo. I am really excited to have all of you guys on. This is going to be quite an enlightening conversation. I mean, we've been having many, and I know Dr. Buttar, you were on the other day. We had a fantastic call or conversation with Sasha, but this one in particular was actually sparked by the ITNJ hearing that you were on, and we had a sort of after conversation where you said, hey, you know, but I'm more as lawyers and military and law enforcement people to really take action. And, you know, so much of what people are reaching out and asking for is what can we do? And also, obviously, with the heightened situation in the States right now in the US with the protests, the issue with the law enforcement and really giving people some advice. So I'm going to ask you guys some questions, but I want to have you open up, Dr. Buttar, with, you said you had some information and just paint a picture for people about how we can get military and the law enforcement people involved.
Well, Imani, those are great questions. And I'll tell you that I don't know whether you guys saw, I got frozen there for a second. Something happened with my internet, but hopefully you guys can hear me right now. Everything's working? Okay. So the thing with the military and the law enforcement communities are that they are right in the middle of this massive political battle, and they're being ostracized by certain sectors of our community and embraced by others. And the thing is that they are unfortunately victims of political maneuvering. And this was not the issue when we talked initially about the law enforcement and military communities. My reason for reaching out to them was twofold. One, being a veteran myself, I wanted people to understand the perspective of one who serves. And it's not just unique to veterans or to soldiers, it's unique to anybody who is in a position to serve or does serve at the risk of their own life, which means law enforcement, police, first responders. You know, these are very, very special individuals. And regardless of the fact that there may be some bad apples, remember, I mean, I'm a doctor. I can tell you there's a lot of bad apples in the medical profession, all right? And in the law profession, in every profession, you'll always have people that don't represent that profession in the highest levels. But that does not mean that we throw the baby out with the bathwater. So right now, what's happening with the law enforcement communities, for example, some of the things that are happening, it's completely unjustified, it's unfair. But my reason for reaching out 2 months ago to the law enforcement community, to the military community, was so that they would be reminded of the oath that they took, which was to defend and protect the US Constitution against all enemies, that keyword, all enemies, foreign and domestic. I wanted to make sure that I reminded them of this oath because that was something that I was reminded of 10, 15 years ago, actually about 12 years ago when the H1N1 craze started. And it's important that those that are in the position of enforcing the law are reminded that there is such a thing as a illegal order. And in fact, for a soldier to follow an illegal order it actually constitutes a war crime. And so we have to know the difference between right and wrong. All military, all law enforcement know that they are not to take advantage of those that can't protect themselves, those that are weaker, those that need to be protected. And so just to remember that component, that was the reason that I reached out to the law enforcement community and the military community. And the second reason was because I wanted people to recognize the sacrifice that these people make on a daily basis. And many, many times people forget that. And so now, fast forward 2 months later, with the current situation, now more than half the world's population recognize there's something wrong, something is amiss, something doesn't smell right with this COVID-19 garbage. And now there are a lot of people that are coming to the awareness that this political agenda now is being replaced with another political agenda. And in the middle of this political agenda fall the law enforcement community. So I would like to just take a minute to say two things. One, Dominic Izzo has become a good friend, is a retired law enforcement officer. Many people probably know who Dominic is, but just in case you don't, you know, Dominic has made it his life's purpose, and his broadcasts and his programs, everything constitutes empowerment for people to learn to defend themselves, for people to become empowered with the ability to protect themselves and no longer be victimized, no longer be able to be taken advantage of, which is a truly a noble goal for any human being to take on, so that others that may be not as well versed, are not as educated, and may not be as skilled, can now be empowered with the skills and the information and the knowledge that Dominic either brings to the table directly or brings other people to the table to help him to let people become empowered. So for that, Dominic, I truly appreciate you and what you've done and how you've helped people. So that's the first person. I want to make sure that everybody knows who Dominic is. You know, I'm sure, Imani, you've already done some introduction, but I wanted to make sure people knew that. And then Dr. Williams, Cordy Williams, you know, I didn't know that when Dr. Williams came from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, where I was at, to meet with me, I didn't realize that he was the same person. So, you know, you guys may be wondering, oh, who is this guy? Well, he's the guy that had the sunglasses on and had the baseball cap backwards, and he talked the police down in front of the Capitol in Sacramento, and he's an ex-Marine. And so the most dramatic thing for me in that footage was whoever was filmed the Capitol and started, you could see the Capitol, and you saw actually snipers up on the top of the building of the Sacramento Capitol for California. And somebody started playing the national anthem, and you see these snipers stand up and salute the flag. And after that, it's almost like, what are we doing here? And you see the police just dissipate. And so, Dr. Williams, thank you for that. As a person who has served in the military, I thank you for your service, and I thank you, Dominic, for your service. And I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Dr. Buttar. You know, and I think just bringing this conversation to light, representing as a doctor, as military, and also bringing in the legal, I mean, that you're seeing the big picture. And I think that's what's so unique about how you are getting your message out, because I want people to, I know a lot of people are following you, but you're doing an incredible job too. So just to recognize and acknowledge that. So thank you for your service. You know, we didn't do an introduction yet, so that was perfect. Dominic, I want to start with a question for you. Now you've been, and just give a little bit more bio, because I know you've been with the Chicago Police Department, but I've got some questions here for you. What is the basis of the oath that the police and military take to protect the people of the land? What does that mean to you, the significance of that, and how are you educating people, like Dr. Buttar said, about what people's rights are and so forth? So if you can share a little bit about that.
Well, first thing, I'm from the northwest suburbs of Chicago. I was with an agency that's a suburb in between Milwaukee and Chicago, so we got a lot of their element out there. Number one, I also want to take a time out to thank Dr. Buttar. No one, in my personal opinion, has done more during the last 6 months to wind up educating the world than Dr. Buttar. He's been fighting tirelessly. So he's got all of my respect to an undying level. That oath to the Constitution we swore, you know, it's not a one-way street. It's not the law that law enforcement or military swears to it. One thing that, you know, Doc is passionate about is changing the way that law enforcement looks, meaning that, you know, why are we enforcing laws that show people chasing down a single guy at a beach? Or why are we going through a time now where we see enforcement for groups of 3 or 4 people together, but now just weeks after that, we see riots going on where police are not doing anything? I think the biggest thing in any realm whatsoever is education. And what I would like to see, as much as I talk about the Constitution on the police's side, is the public. You know, Sir Robert Peel pretty much is accredited for modern policing, and he wrote the 9 principles of policing. And number 7 is one of my favorite, and it paraphrases simply saying that the police are the public and the public are the police. You know, I was a civilian. I tested. I became a cop. I served. I'm a civilian again. So I'm from the public. I go back to the public. It blows me away on a daily basis how many people want change in law enforcement. And I do support some, if not a lot of the views they see or they need and request, but they don't know the whys. So many people will just arbitrarily vote in a mayor. The mayor appoints a police chief. The police chief creates department policies. And you have this expectation that everything's going to be working smoothly on your streets while you're asleep at night. And then you see the next day that a cop violated their oath to the Constitution. A cop did something they don't understand. If more people got involved with their villages, with their cities, and understood, you know, the Constitution, the oath, the state laws, the department policies, they would see exactly where you need change. So one of my biggest thing is yes, I'm very passionate. I wish that law enforcement would stop with this revenue generation. I wish it would go back to the Constitution, but not a lot of citizens understand the whys behind that. And they need to get more educated and they need to get more involved.
So Dominic, I mean, are there ways that you're on Instagram? I know you're in Facebook jail right now, but you've been putting out a lot of information. YouTube, you have your show. Is there anything that you're putting out? Because this is the World Health Sovereignty Summit is really about bringing people together and everybody hearing your voices, but also them finding their voice. So you're talking about citizens stepping up. What would you recommend that they do to find out what their rights are, and what's that process?
Well, number one, I'm available to everybody. The central hub to find me anywhere is izzo.us, izzo.us. It will forward you to all of our social media. I wrote a book called Before the Badge, Everything You Need to Know Before You Become a Cop. I talk about in there the oath that you swear the Constitution to, the ideas of not losing yourself and becoming a revenue generator and falling victim to the policies or the quotas that law enforcement does have, because there are quotas. They're called performance evaluations. I talk to people. We're talking about this all the time. I'm on 5 nights a week on Mojo 50 Radio, where we do a 2-hour show Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we talk about the things that people can do. The number one thing is, believe it or not, everybody wants to focus on a national level. They want to focus on who's in the White House. They want to focus on the senators. Nobody focuses on, hey, it's Tuesday night. It's the first Tuesday of the month. I need to go to my village hall and I need to listen to the meetings and what the mayor did. I need to look at last week. I need to go online and type in my village's website and see what the meeting minutes were for last month. I need to get involved. I've got 4 minutes for public speaking. I need to ask the mayor, can you explain to me, why law enforcement does this? Because the biggest thing people do not understand is, or they don't remember, cops work for you. Your village works for you. Your mayors work for you. Your governors work for you. We have gotten so far away from that. People forgot that they are the employers of the people that they elected into a position, and that includes their law enforcement. So we talk about this every day. And it's just, without getting too general to answer your question, this is a nonstop conversation I always have with my audience.
Love it. I'm going to come to you, Cordy, in a minute, but Dr. Buttar, anything you would add to that? Any resources that are out there specific that you've come across for citizens to really start to understand what their responsibility is and how they can step into having a voice?
Well, I think the one thing is becoming a critical thinker. So it's not necessarily a resource that people can go to, but a resource within themselves that they can start looking at. Become a critical thinker and ask the questions. Why is this happening? What's going on with it? The media shows certain things happening. They show a number of police officers brutalizing a black man or a Latino, and people get outraged, and then this whole thing with the Black Lives Movement starts. I have seen some of these videos, and as far as I'm concerned, it's just absolutely unconscionable. Don't know why anybody would take that type of force, but that is not representative of law enforcement, okay? That is not representative for 99% of the law enforcement out there. It may be representative for that small group, but it's like almost saying that because there's Muslim terrorists, all Muslims are bad, or because there's, Jonestown massacre occurred, that means that all churches are cults, or it's a preposterous leap to extrapolate and say that represents what the police are. So the first thing is become a critical thinker, and then remember that not just complicitness of the media, but the criminal nature of the media to promote misinformation. Because you know what? I have seen pictures of a white police officer completely blocked away from the rest of his crew, and 4 black men standing around him with their backs to him, protecting him from the rioters. Why doesn't the media cover that? Or why doesn't the media cover the police officers that sacrifice their own time and their own money, sometimes even out of their own pockets, to buy groceries for somebody that didn't have enough food? The media doesn't cover stories like that. The reason is because bad news travels 10 times faster than good news, and they're just trying to sensationalize the news. They have no issue with telling lies in order to get sensationalization, but they don't want people to see the goodness of humanity. So becoming a critical thinker is the first thing that I would encourage people to do. And then the second thing is that I would like for people to start looking at what the agenda is. Ask the question, why is some of this thing why is some of these things happening, or why is the media showing this? I had a broadcast that I did a couple of weeks ago on one of my live streams that I do every Monday evening, and I said something about throwing out your TV, throwing out your radio out the window. It was a meme that I saw, and last week I saw a person that responded on Instagram after a different post saying that, my God, I stopped watching the news and I feel so much better. My blood pressure is not as high. I'm happier. My spouse is noticing a difference in my attitude. And the only thing I did was stop watching the damn news. And that is the truth. So from a health standpoint, that's another thing that people can do. But I would recommend people find Dominic's website. There's a lot of cool things on his YouTube channel. I love the main video where I don't know whether you changed it, Dominic, where you do the demonstration with the disarming, and I mean, it's really some cool stuff, and it's just empowering to see. And more people can learn that they have the autonomy, that they have the power. It's their own power. Just like Dominic said, we hire the governmental officials. We allow them to serve us, and it's important for us to recognize that rather than be in fear or think of ourselves as reactionary, as victims of this system. We are not victims. We hold all the power.
Absolutely. So that's that power as citizens. And Cordy, you're now a doctor, a chiropractor, but you're a Marine. So I wouldn't say an ex-Marine.
We won't hold that against him. We won't hold him against him as being a Marine.
But when you were at the Capitol, I mean, speaking of news and real news, what's out there and what they choose to cover or not, I mean, that was what I would call the citizen reporting, when they captured you on camera. And that's actually in our video. Is this a lawful order? Is this a bullshit order? Like, that's one of my favorite lines. But just give us an idea of what's going through your mind and what the response is as a military person with the oath. I mean, we all the line as far as following that and following the conscience. And what was going through your mind? I mean, you left because you're down in San Diego. You went up to the Capitol. What was your intention heading up there? Did you think any of that was going to happen?
No, I didn't. And first of all, I just wanted to say thanks for having me on. And Dr. Buttar, thank you for that beautiful, amazing introduction. I think I probably have I don't know what you call the counterpart to a bromance, but I think I definitely have a bromance with the two guys on here for sure. And so I don't know what we would call that, Imani, but thank you for what you guys are doing for the world. Definitely honored to be on this Zoom today. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I got into this whole thing. You can see the shirt I'm wearing. I got into this whole thing because we just felt like we were kind of pushed up against a corner. And it was kind of like, do we allow our government, our tyrannical, draconian government, meaning at a state level, to say, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that. Wear a mask. You got to wear what I call the facial condom. Only 100 people can go to church, all that stuff. And my wife actually got me into this, Dr. Tanya Williams. And she said, honey, we got to start protesting. I'm like, protesting, right? I'm not that guy, right? I kind of follow, I wouldn't say I follow the herd, but I'm an orders guy, man. I'm just like everybody here. I'm a guy that took an oath. And so the idea of protesting, I automatically thought, wow, I'm going against the government. Is that what's happening, right? I'm going to be a convict. The doctor, the front headline is holistic doctor gets arrested at protest, right? And so we did a few of them. And after doing a couple of them, I just saw that it was patriotic, they were peaceful, and they were American. Not this other peaceful where they're throwing the Maslov cocktails. I didn't even know what that was. I'm like, is that a drink that somebody has or something like that? But they're throwing it into windows. It's burning. And then everybody's saying, oh, wow, these are peaceful protests. It's like President Trump said, whether you like him or not, he said, a reporter was reporting that there was a peaceful protest. There's like a building in the background, like burning, right? Fascinating. But these were actual peaceful protests. Get up there in Sacramento on May 1st, and starts out, beautiful day, everything's great, and we go from a force of 50 guys and what kind of looks like really light fatigues talking to everybody to, I don't know, hour later, there's 300 riot gear police flanking both sides. 3 girls have been slammed to the ground and have been batoned. And I'm a total police officer supporter, firefighter guy. Obviously, I'm a military supporter. But these were CHP henchmen hired by, Adolf Newsom, as I affectionately call him. And, they were in full riot gear, looked like Starship Troopers. They pushed everybody back. And at that point, I just got on a megaphone and really tried to share my heart with them about, hey, I get where you're at. I get what's going on. But you have a life and you have kids back home that you got to answer to. That you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror tomorrow and say, did I do what was right? Like, what does the Constitution say beyond the governor? What does your president say, right? So if the Constitution isn't in alignment under the color of law, and Dominic could probably better speak to this than I could, under the color of law, you have to say, yeah, state orders might say this, the governor might be saying that, but does it make sense to slam women to the ground when they're legitimately, peacefully protesting? And I hope I answered your question, but.
I love it. And I do want to pass it to Dominic. I mean, just as far as the Constitution part and specifically answering that if we were going to realize a future for humanity that doesn't include the policing and defensiveness of this military machine, and how this piece with the Constitution fits in, what Cordy's talking to, as far as your response to what the situation that he was in. Can you speak to that?
I've always said that we had a saying in the academy, which holds true, which is circumstances dictate tactics. I could say that a 99-year-old 100-pound woman is extremely dangerous because she's still able to stab or pull the trigger of a gun. I mean, I've been to calls where the most calm, passive young woman turns extremely violent. So I've got a different view for that on that. I empathize with law enforcement, but I've said this for quite a while now, which is if the citizens don't like the tactics law enforcement use, take away the reason why they're using them in the first place. These are just my personal opinions, and I'm going to give you a general concept. Law enforcement shows up on scenes for 2 reasons, proactive or reactive. So either somebody calls 911 or you stop a car or you see somebody walking down the street. If you actually went back to the Constitution and you embraced the Second Amendment, or even you destroyed this garbage war on drugs. I'm not advocating drugs. I'm advocating the decriminalization of them. You take away 95% of the reason why law enforcement proactively interacts with people. So, you hear it all the time. I was stopped for nothing. I was pulled over for nothing. I didn't do nothing. Well, the government gives law enforcement massive amounts of authority. You may think that not using your turn signal is a valid reason to be stopped, but the government says you can use it. They say they give a cop an authority, and that leads all the way up to a Sandra Bland hanging herself in a jail cell. Well, if you looked at the Constitution and you restructured traffic laws, you restructured drug laws, you restructured gun laws, and you put it all back in the hands of the citizens, you'd get rid of policing for dollars, and you would take away somebody being stopped for no turn signal and then getting shot because they had a baggie of weed in the car. They were worried about going back to jail, and they pulled a gun on a cop, and the cop had to use force. So this is why I always go back to the concept of the law of people. This is a relationship. Police and the public, their relationship. Well, I'm on the onus of the job being done. Put in the police. They're the ones who signed up for this job. They're the ones who swore the oath. They should be spearheading, taking on more responsibility. But if you do not see the public step up to the plate and working with them in doing more than just yelling, defund the police, this will not go away. So there's a lot that can be done. And it all comes back to, why are the police doing their job? It's because the people gave them the authority to do it in the first place. So start taking away some of the authority properly.
So, I mean, when it comes down to it, the current situation that we have going on, do you think that the military and the police would side with the state or the people?
I can't picture one. I can't picture one cop, and I cannot picture one warrior who's in the military ever saying they're going to go against the United States people. Never. I can't picture that happening. A lot of cops I do know, they're getting frustrated. They're starting to turn a blind eye. I know that there's a couple of influencers online who are law enforcement who are turning in their badges. They're not going to follow these orders. And when you know the media is not going to give you a fair shake, they're just going to stop. And you're not going to see law enforcement turn on the people in a method that people think they do, and definitely not the United States military.
And do you have a lot of police officers reaching out to you? And I mean, what are they sharing? You know, I mean, imagine that the frustration with the situation is over the top. What support are they getting? And what's the current feeling? I mean, since you're plugged into that group.
Hopelessness. Absolute hopelessness. You're witnessing the disintegration and the deterioration of modern law enforcement, which on one end could be done if it's restructured properly. You know, it's like weeding out a rose bush. You're getting rid of all the dead. You're pruning it. You're getting rid of all the dead, and you're letting the flowers bloom. So if done properly, it could be this could be the greatest single time to rebuild that relationship with the public. But right now we're going through massive growing pains, and you're getting a lot of cops who are frustrated because they're not being. You're seeing the 1%. And you're not seeing the other 99% who are actually doing their job the right way. And the fish rots from the head down. So unless you're willing to look at your mayors, your police chief, your command staffs, this problem is going to continue.
And that's the 99% that you're talking about, Dr. Buttar. I mean, that this restructuring, and it's happening across all sectors. I mean, all organizations within the medical, pharmaceutical, everything's breaking down right now. We're deconstructing, right? What are the parallels between all these different groups that you're seeing, that because you're in so many of them, and what's your, give us some hope here?
Well, you know, evolution is painful. That's what we have to remember. The part of evolution that people forget is that when growth occurs, it's disruptive, it can be agonizing, it can be painful. It's not ever smooth, it's chaotic. But if that growth is a necessary component and a vital component of that evolutionary process, without growth, you cannot evolve. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing everything come to a head. And as Dominic said, it's a phenomenal time to be alive, because now we have the opportunity before us, as he so eloquently stated, to restructure and understand that the power is ours, it's not theirs. And the police, right now, the greatest victims, I think, in the United States right now are the police force. They're the greatest victims because they're the ones who have been put into this stalemate. There's no way for them to win, because on the media, they're ostracizing them. On the other side, you've got these illegal orders coming down the pipeline from tyrannical leaders that have been elected. They forget that they've been elected to you know, serve us. They forget that, as Dr. Cordy said. And so this is an opportunity for us to change. And I completely 100% agree with what Dominic said. I think that the vital component for us to remember is that we all together need to recognize what's going on. We need to become those critical thinkers. And when I start to see what's happening to the law enforcement community, especially to the minority law enforcement community, to the law enforcement officers that are Black or that are Hispanic, and then they're being called traitors to their race or to their cultures because they're standing up based upon the only thing that they know, and the turmoil. Can you imagine the kind of turmoil that it creates within you, within your soul, that, you know, you're being called a traitor by somebody that's from your own community, and yet you're doing what you were supposed to be doing, and yet you're being painted in a picture that's completely inappropriate, so that the rest of the world thinks that what you're doing is wrong, whereas in fact you're doing exactly what the mandate is. And so, you know, of course that takes away from the 1% that are stepping on people's necks and crushing their windpipes or doing things that they shouldn't be doing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the vast collective. And one of the things that I want to announce at the end, after Imani, you talked to Dr. Williams about, you know, his response to this too. I want to talk about this thing that just got released a couple hours ago, which is a very, very empowering message for not just the law enforcement community and the military veterans, but also for all first responders. This includes Coast Guard and includes firefighters, includes every first responder in law enforcement, and specifically to those that serve in those positions, but that are from the minorities, that are Native Americans, that are Black, because proportionally speaking, there have been more Native Americans that have died in the line of service in the military, and more Black Americans that have died in the line of service for their country than the average person. So if you were to look at it proportionately, the Americans that have sacrificed their lives, greater proportion are Native Americans and Blacks, and then Hispanics come very close. The Latinos come very close. So I have a message for them too, but I want to wait till the end. And Dominic, thank you for saying what you said, because that's very powerful, and it's a perspective that I think very few people recognize, and it's a perspective that they all need to know, that they have the power to change it.
We'll definitely come back to that. You have us sitting on the edge of our seats, Dr. Buttar. So Cordy, what's your take? I know you're working on some efforts, and just to continue in the conversation, give us your perspective and also share what you're doing actively there in California.
Yeah, I guess I'm just blown away that, like, when did being American become un-American, right? Like when did being a patriot become uncool? I don't think, kind of speaking to what Dr. Buttar said, just about the fact that, this divisiveness that is created in certain segments and groups within our country. And, it's fascinating how, not to hone in on one news outlet, but, I was watching Tucker Carlson one night, and I'm not here to get political, because this isn't a political affiliation issue. I honestly believe we have a patriotic American issue. We have an issue of people really not asking the critical questions and the right questions, and learning how to independently think for themselves. Like, there's a lot of people waking up, which is great. So they're freed up to exactly what Dominic said, to have choice, to have say, to start to learn that, hey, they can join and step into this, for lack of a better term, fight at any point. Handing out Gatorade and jock straps on the sideline, that doesn't help effectuate change. And so, I think in the realm of going away from socialism and towards freedom, we don't want to get in the conversation of defunding police. I think that's insane. The whole idea I get chills in like a frightening way, like thinking about that there could be total anarchy. You can see what's happening in Seattle right now, how well that's working. There's checkpoints. The governor said, you know what, I'm out. The mayor's saying, you know what, I'm out. And why are we doing that? We're doing that because we're saying, because of these isolated issues, now we're going to create divisiveness within different racial communities. Not to say that, our society's not perfect. It's certainly not. It never has been. It never will be. I'm a white guy. Definitely easy for me to say. But then to say, well, the sole problem is that we have a black on white crime issue, or we have a all police are bad issue, and we just need to defund them. When I was watching Tucker Carlson, he went through all the different, if you guys haven't seen that, it's a great clip where he highlights the stats, the real numbers, getting people to actually step outside of what's exciting and sexy on social media, or what's out there on the different fake news networks, and saying, okay, what do the numbers say? Do the numbers say that, oh, wow, COVID is this big thing and we're all going to die? Does it say that we need to defund the police? Does it say that don't get me wrong, the George Floyd video, any of the videos you see where there, obviously we're all going to be in agreement that was an extreme situation and it should have never happened. And Dominic could probably unload on that about what was supposed to happen and how an officer is supposed to respond in that situation. But to take that one situation, then demonize law enforcement, say, let's defund them. And now let's go back 60 years, right, to where we had complete racial inequality, and try to push that narrative now, emoji, right, where they do the gritted teeth. I just think that's really dangerous. I think it's really dangerous.
Cordy, I'd like to say something to this point too, because it's not an issue of race, as you said. I saw the most disturbing video I saw, which nobody's talked about, was played on a gentleman that was traveling in Arizona. He worked for a pest company. He had a pellet gun. He walked into his hotel with the pellet gun. Somebody in the hotel called the police. Police arrived, and it's all on film. They are telling him, they're screaming at him, telling him to lay on the ground and cross his legs. So he's laying on his stomach, crossing his legs. And they tell him that if you make a move, we are going to shoot you. We are going to shoot you to death. This is a white guy, and it's white police officers. And then they say, now get on your knees. Well, he's got his legs crossed. So when he uncrosses his knees, they start screaming at him, "We're going to shoot you. Listen to us. You know, don't." And he's starting, you can hear him crying, like saying, "I can't get up on my knees." And they're telling him to shut up. So again, they tell him, "Cross your knees." He crosses his knees again. They say, "Get up." He gets up and he starts to fall forward. And he's saying, "I can't." And he put his hands out, like his hands are behind his back. He put his hands out to keep his face from hitting. And they mowed him down in cold blood. They shot him. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I didn't know why the media wasn't showing that, because the media shows that. Then everybody realizes this is not a problem with black or white. This is a problem, as Dominic said, the cops have gotten too much leeway. They don't know, we're putting either the wrong cops in the place, but whatever it is, it's not indicative of the entire police force. It's indicative of bad apples, and we have to take control of that. As with anything, all right? If you have, like you said, Dominic, the fish rots from the head down. If there's a problem with the head, you cut the head off, you put the rest in the fridge, or you get rid of the whole thing and you start again. But that doesn't mean that you say, no more fish. I'm not going to eat any more fish. You're going to have to find the right fish. Maybe it's a refrigeration problem. Whatever the case is, you address the problem at its source and address it. In this video, I could not believe, I mean, that video has caused me, I mean, I've seen some pretty graphic videos, but that one, it was, that police officer should have been hung and quartered in public. Because what he did was completely against his mandate, which is to protect and serve. He didn't protect and he didn't serve. He must have been somebody that was beaten up as a kid, got a gun, and then was willing to take it out on anybody. And the media has not covered that. They haven't shown that video. And to me, it would immediately put it in perspective that this is not a black and white issue. This is a law enforcement being properly trained and understanding their responsibility versus those that don't. I know enough police officers personally that I've met, even when I've been traveling. You know, we start talking and they thank me. They said, you know, "Doc, thanks for letting us know this stuff. We know this is all BS." But they're, like Dominic said, caught between a rock and a hard place. And we have to, as people, empower them to be able to do the right thing. But, you know, that one video, if people saw that, I don't care what race you are, you see how disturbing that was. And this is in Mesa, Arizona. So I still don't know who that, and they acquitted him. They acquitted this police officer. They let him go. And I'm like, how can you acquit him? He murdered somebody in cold blood. It's captured and you acquit him? So we've got a problem, and the problem is not law enforcement. The problem is the head. The problem are the people that are making these decisions. The problem is political agendas. The issue is not police. The issue is those that are dictating a narrative that has a different agenda, that has a sinister agenda at best. And this comes right back to the COVID issue. This comes back to many of the problems that we've seen in society. And again, they're blaming it. They blame it on Russian collusion. They blame it on race issues. They blame it on, you know, a virus. They blame it on whatever. It's not a problem with any of those things. It's a problem with the hierarchy. It's a problem with the people that have been elected have forgotten that they've been elected to serve us. And they have agendas that are highly suspect at best.
Can I add something real quick, Imani?
Sure.
I was just going to say that just speaking to that point, there was another video that went viral of two white sheriffs. And I mean, we all know that there's a million stories like this. To Dr. Buttar's point, how come it's not being highlighted? Two white sheriffs are there, an African-American family, black family comes over, or they call 911. I didn't see that part, right? And she's got a coin, this little girl, I mean, I guess she was like 1.5, I don't know, 2. And she's got a coin stuck in her throat. The officer sits there, they calm the family down. The sheriff, and this is a point that my good friend Greg Anderson, who's the fired police officer in Seattle made, that those calls that they make, Dominic, and you could speak to this, where there's not a gun out, and that's what people don't put any attention on, where there are calls where they're administering first aid because they can get there quicker than the firefighters can and the EMTs. And literally, if those sheriffs hadn't been there to do the hook maneuver on that little girl's trachea and esophagus, she would have swallowed that coin, she'd be dead. And they saved her life. And you can see the family crying and everything. And I mean, it's just beautiful. I wish more of those were pushed harder.
I'm gonna pass it to you to just that, and then we'll. I want to make sure people know how to reach you, and then we'll close with your piece, Dr. Buttar.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Were you addressing me?
Yes, I wanted to have you respond to what Dr. Buttar and Dr. Williams were speaking to.
If Dr. Buttar is talking about the same video where the young guy was on his knees, I think that happened a year ago. It was horrible. There's no excuse, but the problem is what you're looking at is the laws police are afforded qualified immunity, and you're looking at law enforcement has the ability to spend weeks and weeks and weeks after the fact to make all the laws put together to explain why a scene happened. I've been very public about it. I've been taking a lot of heat from law enforcement, a lot of very bad heat. I don't agree with the Atlanta shooting. It made no sense to me, but you can look at, why is an officer chasing down somebody with a weapon that's not lethal? I've never, ever known the taser to be a lethal weapon, but then you've got law enforcement saying, no, this does fit within Graham v. Connor and the use of force continuum. And that's the problem, is you have such a gray area, once again, that the citizens don't know. You're not electing in the right people who are going to make the laws that fit what you want. And this is what you get in the long run. Again, I'm 100% pro law enforcement. The ideology behind it, the police of the public of the police, swear an oath of the Constitution. The job of the police is to maintain order, keep the peace and maintain order in a free society. It's not to collect revenue, and it's not to wind up hiring people who got a bad chip on their shoulder, of which at myself at one time had. So I get it. The amount of authority that cops have, the power you have, is so easy to get drunk on. It is addicting to have a badge in your back pocket, on duty, off duty, and say, I'm a cop, and you almost get to do whatever you want. I have to bring it back to, once again, that the citizens need to get more involved. Just to give a small example of what people don't know, and I'm not sure if this is in every state, but a lot of people have, and this is just one thing. A lot of people get bent out of shape when they hear about cops being put on paid administrative leave. So I'm going to explain why this happens so that people have the power of going, oh God, I didn't know that. I do need to get more involved because I can affect the change with how policing is done. If let's just say for argument's sakes, I do something at work and it goes against the department policy violation, which is a general book that a cop can be fired for any reason under the sun the chief wants. A general orders or department policies is a giant FU book written by the police department to crucify cops. The public doesn't know this. If something is done and it's deemed unlawful, the department places me on administrative leave for a month, for a few weeks, whatever the case is. While they do their investigation, if they put me on with pay, that means when I come back, they can administer the determined punishment they find. If they do not put me on paid leave, that is my punishment. So a lot of people don't get this. You go out, you shoot an unarmed black man, and the whole community is up in arms. Oh my God, they put him on paid leave. He's still getting paid? You want that. Because if he goes off of pay for a month, comes back with no pay, that's his punishment. You can't do anything else to him. So that's just one thing of why the people really need to get involved with their police departments and understand why things are done. So when they ask for change, instead of doing something asinine like asking for defunding, they can ask for the right change to be done. So I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face. The public needs to get involved with this healing process. If they don't, nothing will change.
Yeah, the education needs to happen, not just around the police department. I think with every aspect, we need to start understanding the law and what our rights are as citizens and be able to ask the right questions. Now, Cordy, you're taking some initiatives there in California with your organization. And I love what you're saying that, earlier about it's almost becoming not popular to be patriotic, but what initiatives are you taking so you can share with people what's going on?
Yeah, well, since the protesting and COVID and all that, we kind of went from protesting to my business partner and I, Chris Lippy, founded an organization called 1776 Forever Free. And we're basically putting out the paperwork there to get 501c3 status, but you guys know how that works. It takes time, right? Especially in this climate. And basically what the whole organization is about is constitutional freedoms. So it doesn't matter. It's not a spiritual, religious, what your affiliation is, or, are you red or blue, or, political affiliation doesn't matter. It's like, just like these two patriots we have on this call, like Dominic and Dr. Buttar, do you believe in the Constitution? Do you believe in that patriotism is cool? You kind of like that thing called the American flag, and you want America to go back towards freedom. You want it to go towards where we're one country together. We're holding up flags on 4th of July, right? And so we just decided to support this organization. And in particular within California, the movement now has really centered around the recall of this, I don't know what you want to call him, draconian dictator. I guess that'd probably be the best AKA for him. You know, draconian dictator, and his last name happens to be Newsom. You know, we want to get him out of office. You know, we just want to get him out of office. There's 2 political action committees involved in it. There's one called the Patriot Coalition, run by Orrin Headley. And what a lot of Americans are seeing around the country and in California is a worldwide website, www.recallgavin2020.com. That is Orrin's PAC. And I guess what I would say kind of around that is, if it doesn't say Patriot Coalition, don't sign it. The other PAC is Tom Del Beccaro of Fox News, CA Revival, and my organization. Those are the 3 organizations that are involved. You can donate money to either one of those. I'd say the easiest, if you want to go to my website, you can donate money there. You can buy a Freedom Fighter t-shirt. We've got to get the first, any other petitions are null and void. There's one petition going forward. It was administered and the Secretary of State said, hey, this is an official petition last Thursday. The clock starts at 160 days. There's 152 left now, something like that. I'm not a mathematician, but I think it was this past Thursday, 156, 155, something like that. But the clock is ticking. We have to get 2 million signatures. It's technically 1.5 million. We're saying 2 million because we know they're going to say that some of them are not right. And we have to get $4 million because it's $3.50 per signature. And that's what we're trying to raise. And so we're doing a big rally in San Diego in front of the administrative building a week from today. That'll be June 28th from 1 to 3 p.m. And we're going to have, I'm going to go ahead and drop it now. People like Tito Ortiz are going to be speaking from the MMA, one that is MMA champion. It's about to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. I said I was going to drop that tomorrow morning, but I changed my mind. Tom Del Beccaro, myself, I'm speaking. Guy named Steve Franks that's been in the political party and movement in California for years. Woody Woodrum, and I might have another special surprise tomorrow, another celebrity. It's going to be a good time. Taking money, and what I mean by that is donations. 100% of your donations go towards the signatures and us moving the needle. And then we'll be taking donations, petitions, all that. Coffee Anderson, country music legend, is going to be playing. He donated his time. Just a lot of great Americans out there, for sure. We're expecting 4,000 to 10,000 people. So
that's some of the citizen action that you're talking about, Dominic, getting people to step up and be the patriots, embody that. And that's really what it's going to take, is everybody stepping in. Now, I know, Dr. Buttar, you had something that you wanted to close with, so I want to give you a chance to speak and also let people know how they can support and reach out to you, anything that you want to let everyone hear about.
Well, thank you for that, Imani. So the first thing is that some of you may or may not know, Dr. Cordy Williams told me that he had been considering running for governor for California, and some people were trying to talk him out of it and maybe run for City Hall or something else. And I'm like, man, go hard and go home, and yeah, run for governor. Definitely do that.
You're too kind, brother.
And same thing with Dominic. Dominic has no political aspirations, but Dominic, you voiced it so well. You both have just very eloquently made cases that nobody could refute. Nobody of common sense and following a logical sequential thought pattern could argue that. And so, these are the types of people that we need as politicians. And these are the types of people that truly want to serve. And they're not even looking. I was actually pointed out that I should run for office. I said, man, that's the last thing that I'd want to do. I think actually that might be a criteria that we need to look for the people that are being elected, that they don't want to serve. They're being, they're feeling compelled to do it because just to write something. So anyway, Dominic, if you run for anything, man, you got my vote. And Cordy, same with you.
100%.
I ran for sheriff out here in Cook County in 2018, and I said, if I'm staying out here in Chicago again in 2022, I'll run for sheriff again.
All right.
There you go. Love it.
I will help you in every which way I can to get elected. So both of you guys. As far as the announcement I wanted to make, so we are in the final stages, and I had no idea that this is going to happen, but it's so incredibly important. So the people that have served, that have protected, they are no longer being served by our society. Healthcare is the most pathetic thing right now on the planet. And I'm not just talking about in the US. I'm talking about globally. So Cordy, when you were talking about, you know, patriotic for, you know, following our flag and when we wave the flags, I would say that every nation that has soldiers and that has law enforcement have the same issues that we have here, because those soldiers were serving their nations to protect their borders. Their law enforcement is protecting their citizens with the same mandate that we have. And so this is really a global situation, because as goes the US, so does the rest of the world. So what we're really doing is we're not just setting a precedent for our own nation, we're setting a precedent because the whole world is looking at us. They're looking at us for everything. I mean, unfortunately, they look at us when the FDA makes a rule, then all the other governments, you know, follow the same thing. We see this all the time. So it's not anything unusual, but I just want to make sure that we understand that the same issues that we're facing in the United States, we're facing all over the world. So the announcement that I have is that we're in the final stages of announcing a VA Plus. It's a special VA Plus HMO, Health Maintenance Organization, that is going to be catering to not only veterans, but also to law enforcement and to first responders. It doesn't matter whether you're a veteran or not, but the unique thing is that they're going to be allowing, there's certain laws that have been passed that President Trump signed into bill in 2018, and most veterans aren't even aware of the benefits that they have. Only, in fact, 1/3 of the veterans that are eligible for benefits even know that they are eligible for benefits. 2/3 of them don't even take advantage of that. But this particular health resource, a VA Plus HMO that we're talking about, we all know that HMOs, you know, they're always trying to make money, they cut costs. This HMO is totally different because it's going to be serving the needs of those who have already served, who are no longer serving. And I'm going to have a very influential role in this, because it's going to be basically my protocols and our medical system that's going to be put in place to help these soldiers and these law enforcement and first responders. And we've already got the Native American component. I want to make sure that the Native American component and the Black component that have disproportionately served our nation are addressed and they're taken care of. Because again, I'm not talking about the whole world. I'm talking about law enforcement, I'm talking about military, I'm talking about first responders. And we will be able to extend that beyond just this component. But I'm here to tell you that my goal is that this HMO makes every other HMO obsolete, because we are truly taking care of the people first, second, and third. That's what our priority is. And right now we were trying to see if we could scramble and come up with a, you know, with a place where people could go for more information, but we just weren't able to meet the crunch time. So people can go to askdrbuttar.com. That's askdrbuttar.com/ask. And just, it's the same questions that some people probably saw before, but just indicate if you're prior military or law enforcement, if you're active or if you're retired, it doesn't matter. Just go ahead and indicate in there and just get on that list, because in the next 24 to 48 hours, we will be sending information to everybody that basically subscribes, to let them know that if you fall into any of these categories, then you will be eligible. We'll get your information, and in the next few weeks, somebody will reach out to you to make sure that you understand what your privileges are, what your benefits are, and how you can get enrolled in it. It's going to save you money, but it's not the money part that is really the focus. It's that truly they will get care that they need, that they require, rather than high-end ticket items like MRIs and PET scans and crap like that that's just going to irradiate them, and more pharmaceuticals throwing things over the symptoms to cover up the symptoms. Instead of that, I'm talking about truly helping them to regain their health, to regain their autonomy, because when you have health, you have hope. And when you have hope, you have everything.
Love it, Dr. Buttar. And we're happy to get the word out. So once you have that official website, just let us know. We'll put it out to everyone. And we've, you know, part of the idea behind the World Health Sovereignty Summit was to obviously highlight people like yourself that have been doing the work and in the trenches, but we also want to mobilize other people, you know, citizens to take action, not just in the US, although I do, you know, we talked about that the other day with Sasha, that, you know, the people are looking to the US and they're looking for the patriots to step up. And that's the invitation for everyone to take action. So we have a Slack channel that we want people to get in conversation with, the Telegram, because who knows when we'll get taken down on Facebook or Fakebook and all of this. We have to use multiple channels and be really inventive and creative the way that we communicate with each other. So I love that you're creating this database of the military, of the doctors, and of, you know, the lawyers. You know, you've been doing that since we talked several months ago. So I imagine your list is getting quite large there. But, you know, it's really about us mobilizing together and being able to leverage the work that each of us are doing. So whatever way we can support all of you, that I'd like to extend that out, and just let's keep this conversation going, because these conversations are going to be what creates the change. And so I'm really grateful for all of your service, for your commitment to our Constitution and for the service to our country, and know that around the world that that's what we're planting the seed for everyone to have freedom around the globe. So thank you all for taking the time. Appreciate you. And we'll get this message out to as many people as we can. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dominic. Thanks, Doc. Appreciate you guys.